Hey guys, this is Matt Core from Ctrl+Paint.com, and today we're going to talk about getting more out of the free transform tool. And the example I'm going to be using are ellipses, which are always a challenge. So here's our free transform tool, and you are very familiar with this. You hit Ctrl+T, and then you can change the shape of things. Now, what if you hold down Shift while scaling? Well, if you do that, then it's going to constrain the proportions, and you probably already knew that too. That would be the most common hidden feature, and the others are a little less common. So the one I really like is that you can hold down Alt, and it will keep the object in place and scale relative to the pivot point. And right now our pivot point is here in the center, so if I hold down Alt and grab this side, it will make it wider without moving it. I could do the same thing with the vertical axis. This is good. This is going to be very powerful, and you'll realize this the more you play with it. Now, it's important to know that if I were to move the pivot point, I get some different functionality. So if I move the pivot down here to the lower left corner and rotate, it will rotate around the pivot, which is good to know. And then if I were to move the pivot point somewhere else and then do my uniform scaling, with Alt held down, you can see that it's doing that relative to the pivot point. So generally speaking, it means relative to the center, because your pivot point defaults to the central position. But if you move it, it's important to know why it's behaving strangely. So the next cool thing you can do is get Shift involved. So here I have Alt and Shift held down, and I can scale both axes relative to the central point. This is very important, and especially useful when placing ellipses. So here I have an example of a little underdrawing, and this is something that I'll commonly do. If I don't want to draw these freehand ellipses, I might work with a vector layer. Here I actually have a rasterized layer, but it would work exactly the same with vector. And if I want to get this ellipse in place, I'm going to need to really be careful about how I'm free transforming. So maybe I'll get the sort of horizontal dimensions correct with this, holding down Alt and Shift. And now I'm going to hold down Alt to get the degree correct. And now maybe if I want a little bit bigger, I'll hold down Shift and Alt at the same time. And then I can confirm it. Now, one thing that you might find yourself doing is you want to have two ellipses that are right next to each other, sort of concentric circles. Well, you could do that by duplicating one, free transforming, and now I'm going to want to keep Shift and Alt held down so I can work on them without moving it in space. And maybe if I want to work on each axis independently, I'll hold down just Alt. So here I can do just the width or just the degree, and then I confirm it, and I'm happy with it. So you can see how this would allow us to place ellipses with a lot more confidence, because we don't have to try and kind of guess where it's going to scale to. We can just do one axis at a time and have a lot more control. So once again, this is not a very sexy or exciting feature, but it really does give you more control. In the next video, we are going to add these new techniques and some smart objects and see what kind of cool control we can get. Thanks for coming to the site, guys.